Yeah.
All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to yet another episode of the Good Deeds Note Investing Podcast open mic session. Tonight, we are really pleased to have with us a friend and note entrepreneur who runs the, I hope, getting more and more famous Paperstac platform for buyers and sellers. I just had my first experience on there. Everyone, please welcome Brett Burky. We don't have
Hello.
sound effects of
No,
applause, but
the clapping things.
we'll add them later.
Nice. Thank you. Thank you.
Brett, is it correct to say that you're a founder and one of the principals of Paperstac? Yeah?
Yeah. So there was the idea before me. So how it happened was this: two of the partners are actual note investors that have been in this. They've been in real estate for 15 years now, and they stumbled into real estate, stumbled into notes. They bought a framed duplex for $8,000 in Winter Garden, which is here in Florida. And they flipped it for, I think, 40 in like 2 weeks. And it was just like a random phone call from an REO agent said, "Hey, do you want to buy a note?" And they're like, "Ah, we'll look at it." So they wanted like 30, and I just give them, 84. And they said, they took it. So like, okay, well, we'll figure this out. So they did that for about a year, two, and they bought like about a dozen of them. And then they got some education and started to learn more. And they just realized this is a great asset class, but they'd like to add some technology to it. And so, of course, they had things like FCI, and they just thought there might be a cooler way to do it. And then I ran into them at the grocery store. I was really just out. Actually, my daughter was a dance class, and I ran into the guy, and we went to college together. And I said, "Hey, what are you doing nowadays?" He said, told me this. He knew I was in marketing. And then he said, "Well, come over here and look at what I'm doing. See if you can help." I was like, "Okay, cool." So I thought it was going to be a consulting gig or something like that. And I saw this opportunity in notes, and I was like, this is huge. This is different. There's something here. And this was 2014. And I just decided I wanted in and not to just consult. And then that's been it. That we started with something before. We outsourced to India, which became a giant spaghetti code of mess, and we threw it all away. So probably $30,000 down the drain. Yeah. And so that was that. And then we brought in the developer that's with us now today, Mike, and he's brilliant. And we launched a beta product like in 2017, and it was cool. It did what we just wanted to prove the concept. Could we do it fully digital? And it worked, but it wasn't the best. Like people used it in ways we didn't really think they were going to use it. And we're like, okay, we gotta rewrite everything, And so we ended up rewriting everything. So for an entire year, we didn't develop anymore. So it was like, people were like, "Hey, when's it going to do this? When's it going to do that?" And I was like, this one's not going to do that, but the next one will. And so that officially launched at Node Expo in Dallas in 2018. And ever since then, it's been a new platform, which you got to see, which is great, because the one we're on now is the stable one that we're running with. And, we are actively developing every single day. So,
All right. So this is like the second or third version, or probably there's been lots of versions.
No. So the one that we have now is the version, and we just add to it. So we keep adding to it. And then right now we're going through a little,
tweaking away. Yeah.
Tweaking away. Someone says, "Hey, I wish you did this." We're like, "That's a good idea." So we just created an internal Dropbox for people, kind of, where they can, because if you're in a transaction, you did it. So where someone says, "Can I have pay history?" And you're like, "Yeah, let me download it from Dropbox and give it back to you."
Right. But so without getting into a lot of the details first, I feel like we have to kind of set the stage for people.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Ask you a bunch of like little questions. So the other people involved in this are Rick Allen. He's one of the original guys. And then who's the other one?
TJ Osterman.
Oh, okay. So
I think
we know them a little bit from Facebook and other note
he's not very active on Facebook and stuff.
Yeah, it's really weird. Like, I actually was at Node Expo in November of 2017, and you were there, but I didn't meet you. We had just met on the phone, but I ran into Rick, who ironically just bought a note from me on Paperstac.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, sadly, Rick bought it, and then like a week after it closed, someone else offered me $5,000 more for it.
I know.
Just through a glitch, it lingered on Paperstac.
I know. That was funny. I told that to Mike, and I was like, we got to fix that. That's like, it's like, that's a pretty interesting thing, but for Rick, then now we can feel like, oh, I got a good deal, so.
Yes, he can.
Yeah. Yeah, and Mike is the other guy in the company, and he's a developer. So everything you see on Paperstac is done through Mike. And so
it's interesting. If you get on chat on Paperstac, like Mike answers sometimes. Like it's whoever's kind of in at the moment will.
Yes. It's mostly I'm supposed to be manning that, but there's meetings and all kinds of things going on, and so, but he's usually in the office just coding. So like if he sees that I don't answer within a couple seconds, he's right on it, so we're pretty responsive. It's our goal, at least.
So I would just love to tell people a little bit about what my experience was on Paperstac. So I guess in the early days, I would go on, like most people, looking for deals. You kind of cruise when there's nothing else going on and there are no tapes. You go to the FCI Exchange, which is defunct now, and you go on to what's the one in Chicago, or not Chicago, New York? The Watermark. Yeah, like whatever you can look at online, Loan MLS. And, I used to always just peruse Paperstac in that same spirit of just like trawling around. And I never really made an offer on anything, though, because I guess a lot of people know, or now they will know, that you set your own price. Like your platform is, you're creating the infrastructure for people to do deals, but you don't have anything to do with how they price things or any of that. So it seemed to me in the early days, the kind of people who were selling on there were setting very high prices. I don't know if that's changed at all, but it was pretty unrealistic. Like actually the prices people were asking for in 2017 are kind of the prices people are getting now, but they were really high prices back then.
Yeah, that's I think it might be education on our part to so a lot of we have sellers that are on there, and we've kind of just told people there's a lot more sellers coming on. So like as more sellers come on, we find that they get more competitive. So they have more offers, they have more bids. And so, I think it's one of those things where we're kind of saying it's kind of like eBay. If you're not going to find it at this guy, you're going to find it maybe over here. And now we've got 30 something plus sellers that are, they have stuff listed, or they don't either have it on, it's on the platform, but not live. And then they have, they'll put maybe one or two on, they kind of bleed them on. So if they don't get the action based off the price, they might change it. So, and we also let them expire. So the first time, hold on a second. Natasha, can you get?
I think someone's hurting that child.
Yeah.
It's past somebody's bedtime is what it is.
Should we call someone?
Yeah, I don't know.
There's a problem at the Burky household.
Yeah, for real. But yeah, so we expire. So like before, with what you might have saw before is where in the version 1 they would just sit there and they look like dead wood, just just sitting there hanging out. Where
it says it's 2 of those right now. Are you going to expire me? I've got 2 that I'm getting no bids on.
They expire after after 30 days, and then so people actually after that they sometimes still adjust their pricing, and then after that they sell. So it's just a matter of we have. And I always tell buyers that things are negotiable. Like we've seen a lot of changes, and you've seen in the when you're in a transaction, you can see the negotiation history on the left-hand side, and you can see the bids go back and forth. So I think it's a matter of education on maybe my part for doing, teach saying, hey, this is more of an open market than it's not the set price. This is what it is.
Yeah, haggle. Everyone haggle.
This is a car, not a car lot, but there is things. People. We've seen things go to past audit reports. So even after an audit report, I don't know if you had an audit report with yours, but maybe you guys sit back and forth straight to buyer and seller, but sometimes we have the option of having a third-party audit report. We've had one go through to even after that they negotiated further, and then the prices still change. So
right. So what's an audit report? But I feel like I keep wanting to be in a progression of ideas here. So, so the big surprise to me, recently I put 3 assets up, and so far we can't sell CFDs on Paperstac, but I know that's something you think about all the time, and we'll figure out eventually with a lot of pressure from the rest of us. So I put 3 notes up recently, and the platform is really interesting. I found it a little not that intuitive, like setting up the listing itself, but after a little coaching from Mike, it was easy. I realized I was just being dumb about the whole thing. And then once they were up, it seems like there's a lot of people on there. First of all, there's a lot of buyers on there. I got a lot of inquiries. And when I actually had a buyer who turned out to be your partner, Rick, it was really, really fascinating going through the process, because your interface actually kind of deconstructs an entire note deal, like step by step by step by step. You start out initially by creating a listing, and you have the option to upload your collateral material, but keep it private until you actually have a buyer and a bid, and you're really ready to let someone do due diligence. So it was really fascinating, because I really feel like you could be someone who doesn't know anything about notes, and because your process prompts the person to do every single thing, it's just this very comprehensive sort of, you're not going to make a mistake or skip anything, because basically the platform won't let you progress until you hit, the targets. And it even tells you sort of, hey, seller, you've got 2 steps, there's like a little flag, and it's like, you've got 2 steps to do. Buyer, you've got 2 steps to do. And it was amazing. And I actually found myself thinking, if I was a beginner, I would go on here and buy something just to have this experience, because it was such an it had so much educational value. Like, people all the time are like, what do I do? Well, go buy something on Paperstac and you should find out.
Well, that's interesting to mention, Gail, because I haven't bought anything on Paperstac, so I haven't been through the experience, but we get a lot of feedback on the podcast and from a lot of people that take lots of training, and they train on how to bid, they train on the different exit strategies, they may train on just ordering an O&E and a BPO, or things along that nature. But the moment you put your bid in, and there's that time period of 1 to 2 weeks, that is that mad chaos of trying to get everything done. And if you've never done it before, those steps are very they can be very difficult for somebody who's doing it for the first time. And, I've sold loans to people the first time who are buying for the first time. And sometimes it might be a little bit of a struggle because they've never been through that process. And, I have to cater them to that. But if I know of a platform that I can sell assets on, that basically takes that, I don't want to call it headache, but takes that additional work away for a small fee, then that just allows investors more time to focus on other things.
Yeah,
Very
totally.
true.
Yeah, it lets you sell to less experienced buyers because you are kind of holding their hand through the whole thing.
Yeah, and we've actually had people at PaperSource say that exact thing. So there's they're in the industry, they want to do a deal. And then when they got on the platform, we do show who the sellers are, so that, it's kind of trying to keep it transparent. We're not, trying to make sure that, people know who they're dealing with, right? And one of the guys was intimidated by one of the people that's on the platform. They've seen him around, and they're like, wow, this guy's a big guy in the industry. And they felt safe, though. They even said at PaperSource, look, I wouldn't have done this deal if it wasn't on this platform, because you guys made it so easy. But I got to do a deal with one of the guys that I, read his stuff and listened to everything he's doing. And it was a great experience. He's like, this is cool. So we've half for people that buy our first time in note investors. Either they're coming from their self-directed IRA, or they found us some other way. But a lot of them were. It's one of those. It's a really good thing, and the others are sometimes experienced people, and they're always like, well, when do I upload my PSA? When do I do this? And we're like, just trust the system. We through everything, and so we have to, because
We'll get there.
to get through the transaction. Yes, that's kind of where but you're right.
Yeah, I don't think I even had an opportunity to tell you this, Chris. Like at the very end, it actually even, prompts you to put in the information for the assignment of mortgage, and actually creates the assignment of mortgage, like right then and there. And like you just print it out and sign it, and then, send a scan, and then they send you a label to send the original to. I mean, it's kind of it's like a robot thing. It's pretty crazy. I was really impressed. I had no idea what I was in for when I got on there. Just thinking, let me see who might buy my things.
Oh, your notes, yeah. We've had one deal close. It was crazy fast. It was like 6 days or something. So we caught it like at the beginning of the week, or I forget how fast. It was under, like I think 7, counting the week. I think we didn't count the weekend. I think it closed in 6 days. Basically,
I don't think mine was much longer than that. It was, Rick and I are both, well-oiled machines.
Yeah.
Buying and selling notes.
Yeah. So once you know the process and everything, it just makes it really easy. Like we were talking about it today, and Rick said last night he was sitting there and he had to do like 3 or 4 different things, and he just on his iPad during a commercial, sitting there with his wife, he just closed a deal and put his iPad. And I said, what'd you just do? I just sold a note on Paperstac. That's a commercial. That could be a really good commercial that he just did all the stuff, assignment, notarized, boom, and just put it down and went back to watching whatever he was watching. So
yeah, I feel like we're doing an infomercial. Like, how
I have a few questions.
Bert?
Few questions, Gail and Brett, that I had. Somebody, if I wanted to go sell something on Paperstac, is there minimum requirements that somebody has to put up, like the collateral and things like that, to make sure it's a legitimate note, that they own it, so it's not something that they, somebody found another seller and they're just pulling it off of a website and put it on Paperstac and trying to wholesale it or something like that?
No, we get it. Yeah. So what we do most of the times, is we say, first off, who's your servicer, because we've mapped those tapes. So we know what a SN tape looks like, a land home tape looks like. Allied doesn't have a tape format, but I've talked to Melissa a number of times so that I know that, I can say, hey, well, if you're at Allied, ask them to give you the tape format. So so our first goal is to understand, is it coming from a servicer that, do you own this asset? Because the last thing we want to have is, brokers putting stuff on. And then if it's a small industry. So like if I was to see you come for example, I would know that, you're probably not trying to do something that's, not above, like I know that it's probably your asset, right?
Yeah.
So, but, people that I haven't heard of or I haven't met, I do definitely, we do our due diligence in the seller onboarding process to make sure that this is a legit seller. And then also if we do have doubts, they'll upload the note, we can see the assignment chain and kind of see who was the last person to own this, so making sure that it is legit. But, that's as far as we've gone. We haven't really had any people that have done anything. In the previous site we did. So these are things we learned along the way. Yeah. So we in the site before, we were figuring things out, so we were figuring these things out, and our best lessons come from our biggest mistakes. And so in the version that was the beta, we did have somebody that was loading assets, and we had somebody go out and do a drive-by and say, hey, this place is burnt down. And I was like, what? It's like, ooh. And so then that was a big red flag. And so I was like on the phone with the seller, hey, your assets burnt down? Oh, I had no idea. It's like, what do you mean you have no idea? And then so it's immediate, took everything off, and it's like, we got to figure out how to never have this happen again. And so we went through a number of steps to make sure we have a good seller onboarding process to know that whoever's listing assets is legit. And so,
Yeah, it's the difficult part of this business is, there's people who are legit and people who, basically just try and, wholesale other people's stuff and so forth. And I get called a lot of names and get threatened, like I did recently, because I call people out. I'm not afraid to call somebody out, and, if somebody, can prove me wrong, then prove me wrong. But, right now, I think my track record on calling people out, based on the information they've sent me, including my own assets or stuff that I've literally seen on other sheets, it's pretty evident. But
it's interesting that we're talking about people, shenanigans on your platform and everywhere else in this business. Because I had actually through Paperstac, I have one note listed. The asking price is $120,000. So that has gotten the attention of people who have offered to present it for me to their note groups. I've gotten like 2 different people so far have done that with that. And I just, I couldn't figure like exactly what would their plan be for how they were going to do that. Obviously they weren't going to pretend to be buyers, like,
yeah,
were they going to get the buyer to come on with me through Paperstac? Were they going to try and get me to give them my contact information outside of Paperstac? Like, what was the plan there?
Well, I'll have you know that I know which one you're talking about, and we freeze those accounts. So he has to call into Paperstac. So basically, he shows up on Paperstack one day
for a scolding. I hope.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like, what are you doing? First off, how are you planning on doing this? And basically just tell them the rules. So maybe it's, there are people that are brokers that can, that are direct to the buyer, that might be doing on behalf of a buyer. So it's like one of those weird things. But I know sometimes people, we can kind of tell, what are they doing? There's patterns, and so like we saw what he was doing. I was like, you don't Christmas tree the site, and then you're not going to do all this, and you didn't give enough time to actually understand if this is a good deal for your buyer. So you're not actually doing the due diligence ahead of time to understand. Mm-hmm. So I picked up the phone and said, hey, this is how it rolls. This is, one of my main things is to maintain the integrity of the site. And so, we're lucky enough to have, you guys list assets. I want to make sure it's not wasting your time. So like, that's why we freeze accounts. So we'll freeze accounts, and they have to actually call me and have a conversation and say, what are you doing? And so after that, I think that either they're like, oh, I don't think I can make what I'm trying to do happen here. Mm-hmm. And they just kind of go away. So I think I told them, I'll tell, look, if you actually have a legit buyer, this is how it works. And we do have a place where you can put in your fee. It's fine, but you have to do the closing through here. This is how the system works. But, don't try to, don't tie these people's, don't tie people's assets up and try to hunt some deals. This is these buyers. If you're going to, if you're ready, if you have the money, do it. If you don't try to shop these things around. It's not going to fly here.
Okay, so how do you feel about somebody? I mean, it's pretty typical with people who are just starting out, particularly who don't have any money yet, where they will put something under contract and then go try to find a JV for it. Like, what is your attitude towards people doing that?
Well, I mean, the main thing we're trying to do is just be transparent. So if that's what you're doing, just tell the seller, look, this is what I'm doing. Because we are going to actually have in the like when you're coming on as a user, we have it. It's not here yet, but it will be, hey, I am going to be a broker, or I'm going to do JVs. And then there might be the opportunity for you to say, as a JV, now might have people that have the money that could be your JV partner. You can partner with these people that are good people to partner with. So that's an option. But mostly we're trying to be transparent. So because we don't want people tying up people's assets and not telling them the truth. That's important. So how we have it now is, if they do actually have a JV, there is a broker feature in the bottom left-hand of the corner where they can actually put in their fee or whatever they're doing. And if they are doing a JV deal, they can click a button on every document they sign to email it to that other person, so they can add them as a vesting profile, or have them sign any documents that need to be signed in the process. So those things are set up for JV deals because we know that people that are getting in the industry feel safer when they do JV deals. And so we wanted to make sure that we accommodate that. But honestly, up front, it's just, making sure that, you tell the seller, hey, look, I'm doing a JV deal with this guy. We're going to go through it. And as long as the seller's cool with it, we're cool with it,
Yeah, I didn't realize you had that option to include someone in. And you also have a way to, I just kind of stumbled upon this when you sent me those slides earlier. There is some way to deal with using someone's self-directed IRA money too, right? I mean, could you explain to us how that works if someone's using an IRA?
So we have a lot of our users actually invest from the self-directed IRA, and we like it because we know that the self-directed IRA people that are coming on to buy, mostly they have a self-directed IRA account because they have money. They're not going to broker this deal; they're going to use it to purchase, right? And then dealing with the custodians has actually been really nice because we know that how they do business, everything's professional. And so once we saw a number of transactions go through like this, it's like, why don't we make this easier? What do they actually need to do to close a deal? So I got on the phone with Kama to Equity Trust. Equity Trust is a New View. There's like 10 that we've got ready to roll out that are coming on very soon. What do you need to see before somebody closes a note deal? And we said, well, we can digitize that. So like when someone's ready to close a note, they just, in their vesting profiles, they'd say, I'm closing with my self-directed IRA. They click. We know that Equity Trust or Quest needs this information. They get it, and the deals go a lot faster. Because we know that it's a good transaction for the seller because the seller knows they have the money. They're ready to close. It's a good transaction for the buyer because it's a digital process. It might be their first time. And the self-directed IRA companies like it because they're not providing investment advice, which they can't do, but they're providing an option, right? They can say, hey, this is a good place to go find some deals. Pretty much.
So certain things are being generated and sent automatically to those IRA companies? And then do they have to come back on and do anything, or is it mostly just they would be signing and scanning and uploading or something?
No. So how it's going to work is that how we've set it up is that the self-directed IRA company has their own version of Paperstac. It's basically partners.paperstac. And when they get the email, they can click it. It takes them to the partners portal, and they look at it and say, does this look good? Yeah, it looks good. Approve. And then that shows up on the timeline, like how the to-do list, like how you were following down, like how escrow, or actually you didn't use escrow, but like we have escrow and audit where they both have their own Paperstac portal. And so we also are going to have it soon for due diligence docs. So the BPOs, O&E reports, things like that. The person, they have their own partners portal. They click, I upload the O&E, click done. It shows up in the timeline. So same thing like that with self-directed IRA. Here's your DOA or DOI, right? Recommended investment. Yeah. So they click that and boom. But we can the goal is to fill out these forms for them because we know that unless it's their first time, they don't have an account. But if they're, they've invested previously from their self-directed IRA, we know they have to use the DOI every single time. And we can look at it and say, okay, this is the fields that will need to be filled out. We can generate all that because it's all going to be in the investment that they're buying anyhow. So like, hey, here's the note, here's the address, here's the this, boom, done. So the goal is to make it easy for them, make it easy for the buyer, and then, move deals along.
That's right. So you basically have everyone's unique forms kind of like already locked and loaded.
Kind of. They all look different. So, but they
all
can
just kind of,
So the goal is to kind of like start with, it's kind of, it's a moving target. So we know how it looks now, and what we're doing now after next Thursday is when this will be live is sitting down with each self-directed IRA company and saying, this is the process. This is a good to you. Will this work? And if they say, oh, could you just do this? Then we might change it to adjust, but the big ones, we're like, we've already been talking to them for a year now. I mean, it's been a long time, but it's really hard to figure out, how do you automate these processes,
You are talking to the automation king over here.
You've got my brain churning, and actually,
Yeah.
I kind of like automation, and it made me think now, because I'm thinking, okay, when I do JV deals, you just convinced me that I could automate to fill out those forms with a few things to spit out the information, because those forms are tough. I mean, I have a family member who has one with Equity Trust, and the first time I was filling out those forms, you got to fill out, okay, the loan information, and they want to know, like, UPB and all this other stuff, and I put in, or they want to know the loan amount and all this stuff. So I'm like, oh, is the loan amount the actual UPB, or is it the actual loan amount? Is the number of payments remaining, or is it the number of payments of the loan? So I'd fill it out and be like, you'd have so many questions. So to have that process done as well, it's actually genius to try and get that, to simplify the process, because the easier a process is, the more people are going to want to use it, because some of this stuff is very paper heavy and can take a while to get done.
We've seen that. So we've done a couple of the different transactions through a couple of the bigger ones, and they don't slow it down too much, because the self-directed IRA companies are on the ball, and they're like, they're making things move. But it is something for the seller to understand, like, hey, this is coming from a self-directed IRA, which is good because they know that they have the money, which is okay. And they, most of the time, they've been all right with it. But at the same time, it's like, I've gotten into email strings where, what am I looking for? Like what you're saying. It's like, where do I find this information? And that's where if there's patterns. So we've seen patterns. And if we've seen patterns, we're like, okay, how do we fix these patterns? These things can be digitized. And that's kind of like, we do the same thing for mortgage servicing transfer. We saw that was like something that happens at the end of every loan. Well, who do I talk to at your servicing company? Who do I tell them to do this? And it's like, well, that's easy. We already have all the data. Let's just make sure we just send it to whoever's at Land Home and whoever's at Madison and FCI and SN, and we'll just automate that. And so
yeah, I forgot to mention that. Like, you get your money, which they've already been escrowing, and assignment gets created, and then the service transfer happens. Like, there's literally, when you finish, there's literally nothing else to do. You just go back to your life, or if you're Rick, you watch the rest of the show now that the commercial's over. It's kind of unbelievable, really.
we just started today, should be really soon, the mortgage recording. So we're doing the mortgage recording now too. So it's an option. It's not in production yet, but the deal is done. So we're at the end, even after that, as the buyer, it's like, hey, would you like to record this for you? Click a button and boom, it's done. So
yeah, well, if you can do that, you're like so close to being able to do CFDs. Like at that point,
yeah,
come on, Brett.
We want to. It's one of those things where it's like, we took the path of least resistance in a sense, where it's like, okay, can we do partials or CFDs? And it's like, and we have people putting commercial loans on too. Like and I'm really like, these commercial loans are like, one was $6 million. I'm like, 1%. That's kind of a big deal.
Yeah, that's nice. The office for you.
Yeah, it's like, that's kind of nice. And so, what's the difference? And so, it's more along the lines of, right now, we're really like laser focused. Okay, we got a good product. Let's make sure that we can get the seller's asset sold. Make sure we get the right buyers on, and make sure we can make a good ecosystem. And once that thing's working great, then we're in a funding round where we're raising money. And so we're close to getting what we want. And once we have that, then we'll be able to add more developers and more resources to say, okay, where do we see we can move? And so what's the next opportunity? What are people asking for? Because we know what people want, just a matter of not running ourselves too thin. Because, I am doing the marketing, doing the paid search, doing the graphics and stuff, everything. And then Mike's over there doing all the code, and he's doing customer support. So we're at the point where we need more people. We actually expanded today. We got a new office, like a bigger office. So it's nice. But once we start to get down those roads, it's like, okay, CFDs are we know we need to do it. I know Chris wants to, he probably wants to put some on, and people are putting them on. Like, and it's like,
And you're taking them down.
Well, we don't know because it doesn't. They don't look that different. Like everything's the same until you like really start digging into it. And it's like, huh. So I mean, they're there, and it's like, well, how do we make this work? Because we know they're out there. So it's just a matter of what we got to make sure we're in legal. Everything's legal. We don't want to do anything that's because it's a nationwide thing. It's not, so you can't just say we got CFDs. We can sell them in one state. So how do you do it nationwide? And then
stop me if I'm wrong. The only difference from your standpoint between a note and a CFD is the final paperwork, right? Like what gets generated at the end.
The quit claim. Right? I always thought it was quit claim deed.
A little in this matter.
Yeah, it sounded like quick claim deed, but yeah, it's quick claim deed. So yeah, so that, and then making sure that whatever the verbiage is for different states is correct. So I think it's like bond for deed in some states. I didn't even know that. Like in
that's Louisiana.
Louisiana, Louisiana, Mississippi, and one other place, and then how it operates in North Carolina is way different. And so like there's like these so many variances. It's like, wow, how do we code that? And so the thing is where we're like, I am like, well, we'll just give them the front part and they can do the rest off the site. It's like, well, that's not the experience. Like the experience is once they get through one transaction, it has to be, because then they'll equate that with, oh, this is how Paperstac works. It's like, no, that's not how it works. If you go through a mortgage closing, it's gorgeous, but we don't want to make it not the same for CFDs. Partials, you know what I mean? It's like the quality control. We're like, okay, how do we do that? Which it will happen. It's just when. It's one of those things. I want it to happen because that means more deals get closed.
One word of advice: if you do CFDs, I would recommend that the seller provide a photo within the last like 60 days of the property or something like that.
Good idea.
Because, CFDs and part of our group, with this toxic asset list is, a lot of us were looking at the same assets and they came back on the list because they're either burned down or and actually. I texted Chad Erbshot today because he had one under agreement in Pittsburgh that I forgot to add to the list. And it's one that I knew was bad and stuff. And I asked him, I said, you end up buying that? And he's like, oh, God, no. He's like, after I had somebody go buy. And fortunately, he didn't spend money on it. But that's one of the things where, just from a QC standpoint, there's a lot of stuff out there, especially on the CFD stuff that gets vacant, abandoned, that people just try and pawn off. And it's frustrating for me, and I know a lot of other people as a buyer, that you're spending, $100+ on an O&E or $100 on a BPO, only to find out that there's $50,000 in liens, or the property, has, looks like a tornado went by. That can, it adds up. So
I get it. Yeah. The list that you showed me with the toxic assets, we didn't go too far down the rabbit hole of the idea, but it was a lunch meeting where we're like, what if we just made this for the industry? That was just like something that you could throw the address against it, and we just maintained this giant database of it would, it'd be a social thing. So anybody could go there and put an address in that they found a toxic asset and was able to say, throw it against this database run this tape against the toxic database, whatever. We didn't go that far, but, and then spit back if there's any of it in there. And if it was,
we have it for you. We have an Excel sheet that we basically, you take a tape, you put it in this Excel sheet, you click the button, and because it's on the Google Sheets, it just pulls in that information and puts a red line.
Perfect.
So yeah, it's, we had somebody quickly put that together and stuff. So people who are part of a group, actually, I emailed that out to people, I think as part of a podcast one evening. So, cause you'll get a list of 300 assets.
Yeah. It's handy when you get a giant list.
I would imagine. Yeah. Yeah. I can see that. That's cool. That's actually very valuable. Cause I it's maintaining quality. And so if those things end up on the site, I want to know.
Yeah, I never really realized until this moment, like what a perfect like mandate would be for the two of you to get together, because you are just like
Very good looking.
Technical.
Yeah, just really like the mechanics of how to automate and solve, and scale things. And it's very much, do you have an engineering background, Brett, at all?
No, I'm a musician by trade.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so if you can look up, like over here, I got all the stuff on the wall.
Oh, wow. Look at that.
So I mean,
mandolin over there?
Yeah, so mandolin, pianos. I got more pianos over here somewhere. So I got I used to be a professional musician for Disney a long time ago, and I got out of that, got into marketing. But I do like systems. I'm very organized. So my buddy will always be like, I don't know why, how do you do that? My Evernote's very organized, and every folder, like on a plane ride, if I run out of internet or I don't have internet, I organize my folder systems and stuff, stuff like that. Like I got it very honed in. So I like systems, like automations in terms of emails, I got away from chatbots. I was starting to get on the road of chatbots, and I was finding that I couldn't answer the questions correctly. You had that much automation. It's like, this doesn't work for notes. There's too many questions. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
t-shirt size and stuff like that. I could see where that would work. Hey, what's your t-shirt size? It's too small. Okay, cool. We got one here. Those automations work. Notes, too many variations.
Yeah. I don't even know what questions to ask. I mean, that's kind of the thing.
Do you like first position, second position? Great. That's it. That's about as far as it's at right now.
So, Gail, do you want to illustrate and walk through the deal? I mean, we can pull up those slides you put together for people.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to just show people. We've talked about how, granular it is, but I would love to just really even show kind of how broken down the steps are. I mean, we might think of there being, I don't know, 10 major steps to doing a note deal, but okay. So this is how the interface looks when you're talking to you're having an interaction with a buyer or seller. Like initially, there's just the, a chance to message back and forth, and that's how the negotiation goes too. I just wanted to show, you can see there's a tab there for share file above there. That's how you release basically things that you've already uploaded when you've decided that you're ready to share them with buyers. That's where you put them. So it's I'm not a huge tech head like some people, Christopher 70, for example, but I found it really, really easy to use. And if you go to the next slide, Chris. Okay, so these are some of, this just shows you can see the kind of detail there is. So seller accepted the price, you accepted their acceptance, then you get presented with the closing terms, you both have to sign off on that. Then the seller has to provide, all this information about exactly, how the transaction's going to go. And every time, the interface just, prompts you and has you fill in blanks, and it's just really, really simple. Mm-hmm. And then you get to a point where you have to each sign the purchase agreement. So you review that, you sign it. Of course, it's like a DocuSign type thing. There's no paper handling involved. So I just really wanted to show these lists, and the little boxes you can see on this closing phase, some of the things are not checked off yet. So whenever you come in here, you can see exactly what still needs to be done. And it's just really, if you're someone like Chris 70 who buys 100 assets every week or so, this could be very handy because you can really keep track of things.
So I do have a question, is kind of stepping back, and really starting from the basics. I get on, I have a username, a login. Is there the opportunity to save certain assets so I can put them as favorite, so I can kind of, keep them there to go check stuff out online or do a little due diligence before putting in a bid, and then contact the borrower and, things along those lines, Brett?
For sure. Yeah. So we have two different features for stuff like that. So we have, you can favorite assets. So there's a star in the corner of every asset. You can just kind of favorite and kind of do some really preliminary due diligence. And you can, that's one way of doing it. And then you can also set up safe searches.
Okay.
So we know that, everyone's got other things to do besides be on Paperstac, besides me and Mike, right? So it's like, how do we make sure that they know when deals are loaded? And there's a way for you to say, look, I only buy first position in these states. This is the UPP I want. When those come, I want to know. And that's the second thing, where as soon as those happen, you'll be able to be alerted via email. And you can go over and see the assets. And then a lot of sellers, like I've seen, and just because we'll watch the comments to make sure that everything is going good. Sellers are cool with, hey, look, this is what I want to, put an indicative offer, and then, hey, I ordered the BPO to title, search or whatever. And so as long as they know that's cool, then people they're like, yeah, okay, I'll give you some time to go do it. If they know you're going to close. Mm-hmm. So if I don't know if that answers everything, Chris.
Yeah, no. And another question is, once an offer is accepted, is, there information where you can put in, okay, we need to close this deal in 10 days or certain, is there kind of something that can lock them in that after that time, like I can either accept to give an extension, like a piece of real estate, or after a certain time, is it, okay, this person is not going to close, let's just is there a button to just cancel the deal type thing?
There is. So we have two different things that can help with that. One is cutoff periods. So that's actually that's just where the servicing will transfer. Mm-hmm. But we do have the abandoned transaction feature. So if somebody's tying up your asset, mm-hmm. you can click and say, look, I just want to get out of this. You've taken too much time. You click one button, it goes back to be. So if there's any other bids like that were on your asset, automatically they'll know those, and they can go back and see that now they can put in their bid. So yeah.
Oh, really? They actually get notified, any bidder who didn't?
Yeah. So how like this looks here, which says negotiation phase. So when the buyer and seller approve closing terms, and all this part turns green, we pretty much consider that, okay, this is it's done with the negotiation phase. Now it's in closing. So everyone at this part, if they had bids, they get it sent an email saying, hey, look, this is locked up. If it opens back up, we'll let you know. So, but if a buyer or sellers, or actually probably mostly the buyer is holding up the closing phase, if you've given them like, hey, look, close in 10 days, or we're going to abandon this. If they don't, you can just say, hey, look, we're banning this. There's a button on the left-hand corner when you're in a transaction, ban transaction. You can give the reason. And then as soon as that happens, it sends out an email to all the other people that were bidding on the asset, and now they can jump in and finish where they were. So.
Wow. Yeah, I feel like I'm only scratching the surface of this since I, had a very smooth and quick transaction with a very experienced buyer,
Yeah, we have things that we had one guy that it was a transaction where they were going through, and they weren't doing a pool. They weren't doing a pool transaction. They were going through two separate transactions. It's like, okay, well, why don't you just pool these things? Because if you have more than one asset and someone's bid on both of your assets, there's a thing that comes at the top, like merge these two, and they can merge them. And so the seller was like, wow, now I'm going to have to sign like all these different, documents. And this is like, just follow the process. And so they went through it, and they're like, oh my gosh. So they closed like a pool of assets on the platform. And it was super smooth. And it's like one of those things where you don't know it's there until you need it. And then they needed it. And then it helped them out drastically, which was really cool.
So we just got a question from Christina. She's asking, in that automated email to notify the previous bidders, does it at that time ask for a final and best offer type of thing?
No, it just says that this has been released. So we want to leave that to the seller. So that's not our responsibility to, know how the seller wants to operate. If they want to, they can at that point, when the buyer comes back and say, hey, I seen this offer is now available, or this asset's now available, can I then that seller can say whatever they want. That's still pretty open to that point. So yeah, I hope that answers the
Right.
question.
Yeah, so if there are multiple bidders, this did not happen to me, but not at that time anyway. But if there are multiple bidders, do you kind of deal with each one separately, right? Like you don't have everybody's not on the same page, kind of.
No.
Yeah.
Each transaction is private to each transaction. So like if you and Chris are going through one and me and you are going through one, I have no idea what Chris is talking about. So like you'll know because you're the seller, because you'll see from your My Transactions dashboard, you have all the transactions and you can click and you can sort by, buyer, and you can kind of see, okay, who's this, and you can jump in and you can kind of, right now it will change in the future because we've had people that are running trade desks use the process and they want to see it and maybe be able to sort all the bids. And you can do that kind of in one part of the site, but it's not how we want it to be, where you can see all your bids. So you put out your assets. We had somebody come in and do that where they loaded 50 and it was interesting. So they got a lot of bids. They got overwhelmed. And so they were going into each one and it was the same asset. So we're like, okay, this needs to be changed to where they could see this is the one asset. Let me see all the bids and then sort by highest bidder. Those are things that they're not there yet, but what is there is that you can see it, all your different transactions. You can jump in and see who's bidding on each asset.
So if I had 20 assets I wanted to put on, would I have to do it each one manually, or is there a way to upload like all of them at once in some like is it, okay?
So we've digitized. I guess so. So the tapes for SN, FCI, and then we have some other random tapes that some servers have sent over, but we just created a tape, like a Paperstac tape importer.
Okay.
And you just put your stuff in there and then you just upload it and it automatically shows up in your account.
Okay.
So that's I think Gail actually did there's a single asset importer too. It's kind of like a one page where you just click and you just add the stuff, and you can add everything that's needed for the entire transaction. That's how you did it, right, Gail? I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's that as well. But we suggest if you have 5 assets and you want to load it on, and you have a standardized tape of somebody else, you're like, look, I don't have time for this. We'll put it on there. Like we're trying to grow. We're trying to get more sellers, and we know that you guys got other things to do. So if you want us to do it, it's like kind of a white glove service. Like tell us what you want. If you want to link us to your Dropbox, and we'll add the files for you. And then once they're on there, we want you just to field the bids, and just kind of be there at that point,
Right. So right now, do you have a number of sellers like SN and stuff where they're emailing out tapes, but they're also putting them on your platform at the same time? Like, so thereby, if someone's not really connected with all these different sellers, would they have a better shot at sort of, starting to be able to buy from them if they went onto Paperstac?
I don't know. I mean, like I know that there's the SN tapes that everyone gets, right? And so, I don't know. I haven't asked the sellers how a lot of them are. We have had people. It's weird. We go to the conferences like I am in, and so we'll have people that are dealing at different levels. So what they're dealing with is big pool transactions, where they might be getting 75 cents on the dollar for these performing assets or whatever I don't know what exactly the pricing is, but they're looking to get more of a retail pricing. And so they've come on Paperstac because they know that if they can get 82 cents on the dollar, they're happy. And so these are like seller carryback type loans. And so those are things that people have done. Some of these are newly originated. We've had a lot of hard money loans on there where they are originating a loan and they have a couple options of selling it to some of those funds that buy hard money loans that are 24 months, 12% interest. But some have different variations and they'll put them on Paperstac. So and then there's just people like, people we all know. I mean, like if you jump in, the Facebook group, I mean, it's the members there that I've seen that have put stuff on, and I don't know, where they have marketed it before, because I haven't really asked. Once they're there on the platform, I kind of try to help them with it there. So I don't know if people have seen the asset before, but the funny, the things, a lot of the stuff moves. So
yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah. Do you feel like everybody really knows that you would load them up for them and everything if they gave you a tape and
I don't
the
know.
word out there? You're a marketing genius, Brett.
Well, the funny thing is like, I would help with, so some guys would come and when they put a lot of assets on, at this point, we kind of said, maybe start with 5, because like it's kind of overwhelming if you start getting a lot of bids, because people operate differently. Some people operate on the idea of, I put the tape out and then I'll take all questions on Friday. Well, we weren't set up for that. So we have, operating. But yeah, definitely I'm trying to figure out the best white glove service. So if somebody's out there and says, look, I'd love to put stuff on there, it'd be great if you did this, this, and this for me. Yeah, part of my job. I'm saying, you want me to price it at percentage of UPB? Do you want me to make a title for you? Something like that? Yeah, sure. I mean, that's fine. Like if you put them on there, I think once people get through one time through the experience, they can, this saves me a lot of time. It's more of it's a marketplace, but it's an efficiency product. And that's where I think the real value's at. It's more of an efficiency product than it's a marketplace too. You're going to sell it because we are marketing and try to bring in more buyers. But, for the seller, our goal is to make it easier. What you're already doing.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's like an educational product too. If someone asked me now, if they were like, I'm brand new, I don't know what I'm doing, I would be like, go on Paperstac, find something you want to buy, and talk to me about the price, but buy it from them.
Yeah, and if they did that, if they were like, somebody you're doing a JV with, you can always add a team account. So like they say, hey,
and they can see your comments and how you talk to the seller.
Yeah, you'd see the same thing they see. So you basically are on the team, and so you could actually jump in the transaction and say things and negotiate and do all this stuff. And when it comes time to sign, you're right there. So you're basically it's a team account. So we have some people that I don't know how they operate, but basically like they have fund, and then it's maybe the asset manager is on there or something, doing something on behalf of the others. So they want to see what's going on, but they don't want to do the stuff, and so they have the team.
Right.
And so that's, but the team would work the same for JV stuff too.
Right. So how many assets would you say are on there at any given time?
I mean, right now I think it's gone down a little bit. Somebody's assets fell off, but or either that or they're selling. It's one of those weird things. We got to figure out how to track that part. Whose assets went off or whose have sold. So like 110 to highest is like 150. So like around that range. But you got to remember that these are expiring. So like they expire. So like, we don't let people keep assets on there. So after 30 days, they either got to reevaluate their strategy and say, maybe I priced them too high, or they do something else. And we do have a lot of people that, it's funny, they'll upload, like, I really don't get excited about it anymore, because people would upload like 60 assets. I'm like, whoa, there's about to be a whole bunch of stuff on here. And then they just don't do the work of listing them, because it's work. Like you did great listings and you worked through it. You added photos and documents. But, when you have 60 of those, that's a project, so like, that's where I'm trying to figure out, they're there. I mean, the thing is, like, we've done the math, like how many assets are sitting in the wings? Like, it's like, there's like probably 600, like that people have uploaded just there. And it's like,
for someone.
Well, the worst part is like, I get excited because I'm like, I know these people like these assets, and when these are listed, they're going to get the alert and they're going to know, and these transactions will happen. And it's like, well, what's holding it up? And people have lives, people have other things to do, and maybe we're not the So for me, I'm trying to figure out, how can I, with these people that have come with, like, one guy, he has like probably 60 just sitting, and they're good loans. And a lot of times there was one guy who had a pool of like 15, like that hard money loans. I don't know if you guys like these, but some people do, like 12%, 24 months, like the LTV is really good. and you just park your money. They're yield deals. You know what I mean? And it's like, why is he not putting those live? And it's just a matter of they're just busy. You know, they have other things to do. That white glove service, if I knew what to do exactly, I'd do it. But I don't.
Yeah, it sounds like you need to hire some minions, who can work remotely.
Yeah.
Just like offer that service to create the listings for people.
The challenge
That's
is,
the goal.
I'd say the challenge with some of that, just be careful, because if you start taking pictures from somebody and put it up and the person put a picture that was a wrong one, then, somebody's going to come back and blame you for it because, you misrepresented. It's, unfortunately in today's legal world, it's a great idea to do that white service. But,
but that's really anything. We could do that right now. It has nothing to do. I feel like, yes, in our legal world, anyone can sue anybody at any time for anything. But really, I think it's really clear that you guys are not guaranteeing the authenticity of any of the information. Like, you can only do so much to vet the sellers themselves. You can't delve into the details of every deal. And
well, there is one. So, in terms of a software company, like in growing, getting funding, one thing that it seems to be really hot is AI. Like everyone's like, oh, AI, it has AI. It's like, yeah, we have AI. Yeah.
Artificial intelligence. Right?
We do kind of now. We have an algorithm that sorts the listings. So we understand, when the ones that are most clicked, just like Google, they show up to the top. We don't really consider that AI. It's just a matter. It's clicks. But what we are doing now is we're looking at using like machine learning to understand, at this point we're small, but once we scale to a part where we have a lot of sales that we know have been generated, we can take that data and start to model things and say, hey, look, this asset's listed in this area. It's kind of going to be like a Zillow estimate, Zillow type thing. Like, maybe not Zillow estimate because that's not always perfectly accurate. But like some idea of knowing, what are these things listed at and what do they sell for, suggested pricing, stuff like that, where we can kind of use modeling to better understand. The worst thing we don't want is putting crazy bid price or crazy listing prices that don't make sense. That's just not good for anybody. But those end up going away. We had somebody in the beta site that put an ask. I was like, who is this? It's somebody in the industry screwing with this. They put it for like 1.5, but it was like a really crappy house in like some bad area. And I was like, oh,
Eric Hyde.
Somebody, who is that? And it was funny, but we learned a lesson. We're like, touche. We'll figure that one out. But we have, it's just a matter of figuring out how's that happen.
Yeah. So one thing I want to open up for people who are on tonight, if you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat box or the question. We did just get one, which we talked about a little bit earlier about just sellers before assets on the platform. And, what was talked about is really a lot of it's word of mouth. It is a small business. And if it's somebody who hasn't, I'm going to put words in Brett's mouth, but if many people may not know, they might do a little research on them. But, if it's somebody who's known in the industry, then, they're known. So I don't think you do any true, background checks on people. It's more just, word of mouth type thing.
Yeah. I mean, word of mouth. And then, a lot of times we'll look, so a lot of people come through, they really have a business. It's not like Joe at Gmail. It's like, Joe at whatever website, right? And so I'll look up the website and then might even, look at the who is, like the who is basically a way for nerds to look at who registered the domain. I can see like, where was this registered? Does all these things align? Is there any flags? And, also too, this sounds really nerdy, but you'll like it, Chris. It's like we actually have IP tracking of understanding where these people had come from the site.
Right.
So if they're coming from like, outside the country and they have American, there was one that was, where is he from? It was like someplace in South America. Like, and I was like, So, and that was my question to him. Like, so wait a second, I can see that you're coming from across the seas and what's going on here. And so it actually was interesting. It's like, I need to sell these assets. I can't give it. He had a reason. And I did verify that he was really out of the country. And I was like, oh, but it came in handy. The fact that we track IPs, we can see where the IPs are coming from. We understand from that, hey, this is an offshore IP address. What is this, and where do they get them from? And so that's, I mean, and besides that, if I have to, a lot of times I start asking questions, and we've seen that some people that if they're not their assets, they kind of, like when you start asking the hard questions, well, who's your servicer? How long have you had these?
That's a hard question.
Yeah. Well, I mean, any question though, I feel like, I mean, gosh, I hope it doesn't ever happen, but like the people that are trying to do something that's not above board, and they're trying to sneak them on or do something like, I'm going to broker these notes, throw them on here. If you start just asking just a couple questions, they're like, I'm out. This looks like they're really trying to police this side. I won't be able to watch shenanigans here. So,
yeah. Have you had any serious fraud attempts?
No, we've done some. We have, in terms of, what are you talking about, just hacking or just?
Well, sellers, fraudulent sellers.
Just one in the beta version, but it wasn't really fraud. But he's on your list. I saw his name.
There is a list then.
There is a list, and I saw his name. Was like, that guy. I was like, but that's the same guy that like he was putting stuff on that were not his. And that's where we called him and said, hey, your place is burnt down. It's like, how many letters do you get before you're going to, like basically demolish your place, or, it's like, oh, I had no idea. It's like, sure, you had no idea. So that was in the beta version that, now it's way more tighter. Like in terms of hacking or finding things like that, we're on like Google's like most secure servers. It's someone hacks Google maybe, but like, I think we're pretty safe in terms of those things like that. But like I can't predict the future. I mean, like I don't want to say, oh yeah, it's perfect. But but a lot of times the sellers that are on there, we're meeting them at like IMN or PaperSource or Node Expo. And a lot of the names, if you look down the list, I mean, you have an account. If you look down the list, you'll be like, oh, I know that guy, or I know that girl. Like it says your name. So it's it's that kind of idea. We want to be transparent. So. Yeah,
someone just commented exactly what I was thinking when you're saying that. Can we take your list and make it a tab on our list?
Where's that?
Can we take your list of the bad guys and put it on make a new tab on our list with the toxic assets?
I have it. I did save it. So Chris, thank you for that list, because I did scrub the database to see if those names showed up. 3 did, and I was like, oh, okay. So I'll watch these. Like
we're tightening the noose around them.
It's just like it's one of those things where, but we do have something that previous platforms didn't have, where they were watching the conversations. Like kind of, and it's like we don't want to play like, oh, we're watching everything, but we're not doing they're doing it to like manipulate. It's the fact that we want to protect the buyers and the sellers. And if somebody's trying to get the better hand of the other, that's not fair. Because like you said previously, at the end of the day, these things reflect on us. No one's going to go and say, oh, that seller sucked. It's going to be like, oh, Paperstac sucks. It's like, whoa, the seller sucks, not us. So that's why we put these like sensitivity reviews. Like, it's like we watch for what happens to basically make sure that they're not saying, they're trying to do something that's, malicious. But
so is Paperstac, I've been on these other sites, and one of the questions that I had is, a few questions is, what differentiates yourself and where do you see Paperstac going? But I don't believe these other sites have they're more just, a broker in the sense of here's the asset and you can contact the seller back and forth.
Yeah, they're kind of just giving you a place to meet.
Yeah, it's more like a meetup type than actually walk you through a transaction. Is that a correct statement? That yours is the only one?
Yeah, and so the best way, there's value in those, and where you're finding a deal, and that's great. What we wanted to do is something different. Is that we operate from a different standpoint. Is that we're a technology company, so we're kind of like, I don't know, like a Uber to the taxi industry, like where it's like we develop. We're developers. We have the code. When someone says do it, we do it in the sense of nothing's impossible. So like a lot of times with the other platforms, it might be an off-the-shelf type of software. And so it's like they have what they have. That's it. And so our goal is to expand. So that like, yeah, it's different in the sense of it's the whole process. From the time you see the asset, you get on the site, to the time you're off the asset and you're clicking another button to get the mortgage recorded. Like the entire process is automated for you. Mm-hmm. It's a different process. Again, at the end of the day, I think the goal is to be an efficiency product because, we know, and this is, it's not a crazy thing. People would say, oh, people can go around your platform if they want. They'll find the buyer or they'll find the seller and they'll go around you. It's like, that's true. If you're a software that's not providing a lot of value. So how do you combat that? Is you provide a ton of value to offset the reasoning for one to ever go offline. Our fees aren't crazy. So if we're adding enough value to the transaction and we're making it super easy for you, why would you want to do that? I mean, yeah. And soon, like this year, we'll have the mobile app. And at that point, it's like, you can buy an app from your phone or an app from your phone. You can buy a mortgage note from your phone. It's like, okay, why would you want to do it? Why would it's just, I don't know. But there is value on the other sites that they do provide, a marketplace and education a lot of times to, you know what I mean? So, and they might have good assets. It's just, we operate differently. Just ours is a technology focus.
So you've got the mobile app coming out. You've got partials coming out. I'm going to hound you to get CFDs out the door at some point in time in the future.
Yeah, we're going to volunteer to help in some way. I don't know what it's.
Yeah, well, there's one lawyer I'm trying to get him to reach back out to me. So if I can get that company, and it's on my lap. It's in my. I've mapped it and I've done everything I need to do. And so Mike's just like, just tell me what to do. He's like, I'm not going to figure it out for you. Just you figure it out and get all the pieces, and then I'll do it. But he's not going to jump in on that side. So. It's another one of those things where honestly, I think I'm doing like 15 different job titles right now. But I want this done, because it's like, we know the industry wants it. It's not that they've asked for it. It's already there. And we have to say, they get in a transaction, there's a CFD transaction going on. It's like, oh, sorry, you can still use our conversation portal, but you guys go ahead and do the deal offline. And we miss out on the money. And it's like, that sucks. We brought it together, but again, it's not the whole transaction. They wouldn't get the experience, so we don't want to have that be the experience.
Right.
Is it strictly going to stay with? I'm just curious too. Secured debt, or have you ever looked at unsecured debt like auto or credit card stuff like that? Because I know there's like Judgment Marketplace and other sites that are out there and stuff. Or you haven't gotten that far as you're just trying to stay narrow and focused, just with secured, first and seconds and stuff like that.
I mean, we had somebody bring a bunch of auto loans, and I don't know. I mean, like it's also at the same time, like that's just kind of that's too big of a focus. Like for us, it's like there's still stuff we can still make for the mortgage note industry that'd be great. Like there's a lot of things we can do to make your life easier and make the transactions better. And so it's like, we got a lot to conquer in this one area. I mean, like, and plus too, we had somebody that had some loans that were the buy here, pay here stuff. And it's like, I don't know if we want to be associated with that. How's that look? Like things like that. And I think what we have now, first position, second position, partials and CFDs, there's a lot of stuff. And if anything else would be, there's a lot. And then commercial would be the only variation, like commercial loans, just because it seems to be the commercial loan closing process is less work than an actual residential. So I didn't know that, but I'm just.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah, I'm trying to team up with the right commercial like note investor. So like if I have that person that can actually show me what it is in the contracts. But again, I'm come from the marketing world so a lot of this stuff's been new to me. So it's like
what about transfer of claims for bankruptcy? If there's one in bankruptcy that somebody buys, you'll do the assignment. Would you also or look in the future of also doing that transfer of claim for that individual as well?
If it makes sense. I mean, I don't know. I mean, we're open to anything. Once we get. Once we're close to getting some funding,
Yeah.
fingers crossed. But once we do that, we got ideas. We got phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. And so it's just a matter of
Chris wants to hit one button and have the whole thing.
Don't worry. I'll get on there and I'll start shooting you ideas and stuff.
I love that, Chris.
I'm not shy, and
no, please send them to me because we have a list. Seriously, we have a GitHub. I don't know if you're a developer, you're an engineer.
I'm an engineer. So
we have a ticketing system. So we have an ongoing ticketing system where we every week, every 2 weeks, we do a sprint and we rank them. Okay, people have asked, they keep asking for this. Push it to the production line. Push it to the production line. So if there's something that people ask for, I keep trying to push the CFD when the production line keeps getting pushed back. Like, you haven't figured out these parts. I'm like, yeah, well, I'll figure it out. But if they're good ideas, we can create it. If it's codable, if we can make it to ones and zeros, it's possible.
Well, if you ever need a CFD to use as a test case to, work through quirks and kinks and stuff, just feel free to reach out to me. I've, got some I'd be happy to use this test case for you to put up there and go through the process and stuff like that. And, maybe you'll buy it from me or,
It's like baseball cards. You got to just trade them back and forth.
Exactly. Yeah. That's what quitclaim deeds are. They are baseball cards.
They're baseball cards. Different rating systems, huh?
Just like deal them like cards.
Yeah. So, nice. Any of our guests have any other questions out there?
Yes, I think everyone was very fascinated though, because really no one left while you were talking. So nice. I think they're probably all heading over to Paperstac. I know I would be after hearing conversations like this.
I'm actually gonna tonight just go on and start.
I know you are, and you're gonna have 100 ideas for him tomorrow. Just don't even look at your inbox tomorrow.
No, please send them in there. If you go there and there's a chat box in the bottom right hand corner, hit it. I should be up for a little bit, after this.
Oh no.
I mean, I love ideas. We really. I mean, we're not joking. We were at PaperSource, and 2 people walked up and said, "I couldn't believe you actually did what I suggested." I was like, "Yeah, it was a good idea." Because it's a pain in the ass. It was something like where before, if you had say like you had the pay history, every time someone asked for it, you'd have to reshare it from Dropbox. It's like, well, why don't we just make it so that when they have the asset, if they just put it there, they can just go. Click make public instead of having to go. And it's like, so we were like, well, we'll just make their own internal Dropbox. And so we kind of made an internal Dropbox for people. So it's like, yeah, it's a good idea. Yeah. So it's like, why not? Right. And so.
Oh yeah. People are heading over there. So surge of traffic on Paperstac tonight.
Nice.
Right.
But Chris, man, I'm be more than happy to hear any comments. And I also want to thank you for jumping in on the conversation on Bigger Pockets. That was a Sunday morning. I woke up and I was like, "Whoa, what's going on here?" But, it's like it's one of those things. But yeah, thank you so much for being a part of that.
We had a question from John come through that says, for new folks, can they just go over to Paperstac and open a new account to view offerings?
Do you even have to create a login to view what's for sale, or can you just look?
You can look, but you're not going to see addresses and stuff. So like we keep like the stuff that's like the stuff that's sensitive, CFPR, CFPR, like anything that's breaking any rules are now behind closed walls. We're gonna change the way that looks, because that came about. It used to be public, and we realized the bigger guys are like, whoa, those, you know what I mean? You can't just do that. So. Yeah, you can look around and kind of get like an idea based off the note details. If you click on an asset, go down and evaluate it. There's one on there. I can't promote assets anymore, which is kind of crazy, because I used to say, hey, go look at this asset, but that's acting as a kind of a broker idea. It's like very general, but there are reverse mortgages on there. There's one that I'm like, oh, this is really cool. So I don't know if people like reverse mortgages, but.
Do you offer a way, like if I put an asset up and I wanted to promote it, like is there a service that you offer that could be like an additional fee where that's like at the top of the page or a banner or anything like that? Or
not yet, but I like that.
Sponsored. Yeah.
What I tried to push for a while was like when you log in, because we used to make people log out after a certain, because they're, they don't want to be logged into that system, where the assets of the month or featured asset would be shown next to login screen. But now you're just always logged in. So if Gail goes there right now, she's already logged in. So I like that. I think I'd like to put out, assets of the week that have been uploaded. And it's one of those things where I've been trying to do it. It's just one of those things where we got to be very careful how we do that. If it was a paid for service and it was something like that, yeah. Say it in the chat window so Mike sees it as well. Because when I say it, it's like, oh, that's cool. But if somebody else sees it,
no, as a seller, like Gail, you've got an asset that $100,000 asset. You spend a few extra bucks to promote it to the top or something. So it's not, especially as you get as it grows. Like right now, 100 assets. Okay, someone might be able to look through that in short time. But if all of a sudden you have 1,000 assets on there, and even sorting by state, I think that would be key to offer to sellers, because sometimes people, might look at 20 of them or, so forth, say, oh, I've already seen these 20 and just, pop off. But if there's some type of, banner where somebody could, feature asset, and, with the AI stuff, like you said, people can click on what states they like, and then, it would focus on those. So if I like Indiana, somebody can promote something in Indiana, but if someone's promoting something in Ohio, which I don't like to invest in, that wouldn't pop on my screen. So it would almost be, could use some AI involved with that as well to kind of cater to somebody when they log in, what they like already,
preferences
featured, and then go to people who have those assets and say, hey, pay this much more, we can feature it on people who are interested in that state. So.
That's interesting. Yeah, we're gonna have to have a conversation, because I just kind of figure out how to do that in my head. So because basically what you're doing is, well, not to get too nerdy, but you're changing the URL structure of how those filters work. So I can make marketing automation, Chris, like based off the URL structures of the URL, and I can say by filtering, if I see assets that are showing up with this filtering, I can promote it within the chat box to basically pop up and say, hey, there's an asset.
Yeah, have you seen this one?
Yeah, thank you.
Recommended for you.
I like that. Yeah, I got some ideas now. Thanks, man. Thanks. Keep coming, Chris. This is great.
Yeah, your chat button's about to blow up. Basically,
well, I like it. These are great ideas. That one I can solve myself. I don't need one.
That's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be great.
Marketing. Yeah, because I can do that through marketing based off. If they did this filter, I can send an automated email. There's things like that. So, really good idea.
Cool. Well, I feel like we need to let everyone get over to Paperstac and stop slowing down here.
I appreciate this. It's nice to see you guys face to face. Thank you so much for having me on.
It's been great. I had a great time on Paperstac. I just, I think back about our conversation about CFDs, and I kept wondering, like, why are you having such a hard time? And then I saw like how much you were trying to do and like really, take care of the process. And I thought, oh, okay, I get it.
Yeah. But I also really love the podcast. Have you, Chris, I have to ask, did you figure out what the deal was with the water? And first off, thank you so much, Christine. That's good to see you over there browsing. Thank you.
So this story just keeps getting better.
The 5,000. Okay. For people who don't know this story, Chris got a letter from the water department for one of your CFDs telling you that there's an excessive water use, 5,000 gallons a day for a person with no pool.
Yes.
And people with pools don't have to refill them every day. So
I won't get too much in details because it is tied into legal aspects of it right now. But thankfully, the bill that they told me that they estimated versus. So the bill actually came to me today, which shocked me because I didn't expect it would come to me. I expected it to go to the borrower, but
where it belongs.
Yes, but they sent it to me. I'm concerned a little bit because, it's been very quiet, and I'm hoping that the water wasn't somehow turned back on. But
Yeah, so he turned the lady's water off because she was showing no signs of being responsible. Plus, the meter was running and running and running.
yeah, so after I think it was 500,000 gallons of water, I think is
Jeez.
Yeah, and your instruction to the water department was don't turn her water back on until she pays this bill, right?
Yes. So
we don't know what she's doing for water at this point.
No, the bill came to me. The borrower actually made the mortgage payment today. So the mortgage payment came in.
You're a little closer to being able to pay that water bill now.
Well, yeah, and the water bill was actually basically, let me guess, a little more than less than half of what they had initially told me. So it's actually dropped from tens of thousands down.
Oh, God.
Yeah, we were well into 5 digits.
Yeah, but
well.
So right now it's something that I'm just gonna have to work it, try and work something out with the borrower on this one and stuff. But it goes to show, and this is one of the things that somebody called me and they actually like about the podcast is, and I joked about you earlier with the your children and stuff is, we just are pretty real in sharing these stories of the good, bad, and ugly. And I mentioned to Gail, I'm like, yeah, we need to change from our beginning episode of what just happened to just the good, bad, and ugly and say something to good, bad, or ugly, because the reality of it is it's, typically when something good happens, you also have something bad or ugly happen as well. So, it's, it's part of the business.
Never a dull moment. That's my motto.
No, I was telling Gail, Chris, that I was listening to that podcast on the way downtown to the office, and I was just like, oh my gosh, this is such a good story. And you guys going back and forth, I was like, this is hilarious. Like I was sitting in the garage, like I gotta go do things, but I was like, I want to know how this ends. This is like, it was a cliffhanger. I was like, oh, where did it say?
The irony is I have bitched a million times about my giant Flint Water Company bill that I got stuck with for $2,500. I am so eclipsed by
and it goes to like, so, and this is where like, and Gail knows like, okay, something's churning, what's churning. So, I actually have on my to-do list now, as an item to, you can get insurance on properties, like forced place insurance won't cover something like this, but you can get insurance from water companies from the meter on in your property. Because anything up to the meter, they have to take care of. But if the leak is on the other side of the meter, water companies typically will offer an insurance. So, people are saying, well, how do you handle that? There's nothing you can do. And that's where, I just had the wheels turn. I'm like, wait a second. I remember like my house I'm in right now, when we built it, first thing, they do is, of course, the day I got occupancy, the tax, guy came to, inspect the house and, count the bedrooms and everything so they can send me my nice, big fat tax bill. But the next thing I got was, okay, water gets turned on. They're like, it's like anything. Hey, would you like insurance on this? Like a home warranty and stuff like that. You can get insurance on your water line for, $100 a year or whatever it is. And I'm sitting there thinking, okay, I'm at a point now where, I've got, I don't know, 75 active assets, and a lot of them are CFDs or even on notes. It's like, if this was on, if you had a water bill like this on, a $20,000 asset, it would be catastrophic in that sense. But thankfully it's an asset that has, 6-figure value to it and stuff. So, it's not, 5,000-10,000 can still work with numbers and stuff if you ever had to, munch on something like that. But, on $20,000 asset, that you may have paid, call it $8,000-9,000 for, you get, $5,000-6,000 water bill.
That's interesting.
So the one I got today, though, so here's the other one. Besides getting that in the mail today, I got another notice to appear in front of a neighborhood ordinance committee for violations because a property I recently just took back, there's a shed on the property that has flaking paint, some debris on the roof, the fascia on it. I mean, it's like, and this shed is like a 5x5 shed. So somebody who I had clean out the property, I just sent him a text. I'm like, can you just go demo the shed?
Yeah, get the bulldozer.
Right?
So,
Jeez.
but it's,
That-
I mean, it's like that though. I mean, every time, I mean, going to, the mailbox to get the mail is, because you have a servicer, so everything gets ACH'd, and all the money coming in gets ACH. Going there is like going to the dentist. It's like, oh boy, what's going to be in there today? And when you get worse is, I got the yellow, I feel like Willy Wonka in the Chocolate Factory in reverse, because you get the golden ticket from the post office at the PO box, and it's like,
Yeah.
oh, the golden ticket. It's like, okay, then it's like certified. I'm like, oh boy.
I know, when the postal carrier knocks, that's when your heart sinks.
Who do I owe money to? It's either a violation, property violation, or a tax wasn't paid, or it's like, okay, what is it now? And now, of course, like Lake County, Indiana, just sent all their tax bills. And by the way, these are the fanciest looking tax bills I have ever seen.
I haven't gotten mine yet.
So all mine came in, and I'm like thinking, even the paper feels like, expensive paper. That's
fine vellum.
Yeah. So
we spare no expense.
So
well, enough of that. We'll have to get into that tomorrow.
Yep. So thank you.
You guys got to do an episode on that. That should be one of them. That's interesting. The different letters in the mail you get. That's actually really cool. Actually, that water. That's actually a really interesting topic too. Like just the idea of finding the insurance for that, because that's it's $100 a year. That's like nothing.
Yeah. Huh. So I mean, when you look at it it's something that I'm going to research on, and once I get this resolved, bring out the full story. But with it still being up in the air and so forth, I try not to divulge too much information on it. So.
Makes sense.
All righty. Well, thank you, gentlemen. It's been great visiting with all of you. I don't think anyone's still with us anymore. They're all at Paperstac, but Paperstac looks good. We're getting feedback already. They have some in Indiana. Go, go, go.
Yep.
Oh, there you go.
Good.
Oh, Indiana. Okay.
That's
cool. So thank you again, Brett. Thanks for everyone being with us tonight. Go to Paperstac, buy something. You won't be sorry. And please be sure to subscribe to our podcast. Sign up for our mailing list at gooddeedsnoteinvesting.com for an early look at every tape that we put out. Who knows how long we'll keep putting them out that way. We might just be on Paperstac from now on. So
there you go.
Well, that was my next question then, is if we had certain members, can we early release assets on Paperstac?
Actually, it's funny, you can. So there's a thing called a private community.
Oh boy.
So there's another person in the industry that's using it now. So they have a big, huge email list, and they put the assets in a private community, and they basically would be able to send out an email. Here's my private community. If you get that link, they can click it, and it's your own world. And so then it's like first crack at the tape, and it's like basically like your own, Paperstac. So we're getting So it's like because there's a couple people have asked for that. They want just their buyers to see it. They just want our efficiency, the software to do the rest, but they don't want everyone to go to regular Paperstac. They just want to see their stuff. So we have the private community thing. So actually, Gail, you should look at it. If you go to your account where your account stuff is, you can see there's one thing that says communities.
Yep.
You can create a community right now and just invite whoever. We're trying to think of everything. People have asked for that.
You totally are thinking of everything. It's amazing. Thank you, Brett. Good night, you guys. I'm signing off. I'm dying.
Thank you all.
Take care.
Thank you. Good night.